Dating all the way back from the die DM3 until the M2, I have pretty much been a diehard die fan. Things on the dies that have always aggravated me have carried through, unfortunately, until the M2, and I was hoping they'd be mitigated, but they really weren't. That said, in my opinion, the pinnacle of all of the dies was the DM9, and from there, I think they should have started changing more, but they didn't really, and things just kind of got repetitive. There really wasn't a whole lot of innovation all the way up until the M2. I was pretty satisfied with the DM14. I actually went from the DM9 to the DM14. So I had a little bit of a lull in between buying new guns from the 9 until the 14. The 14 was a vast improvement over the 9, but it really wasn't worth the price point in my opinion. And then the M2 MOS Air was released. I picked it up the day that it came out. As soon as it was available for order, I ordered it and I paid $16.95 for it. It was, honestly, it was a disappointment. It had the cool LCD screen, but realistically, how often are you using an LCD screen? I want a gun that I can play with, not one that, I can sit on my couch and play with. I want a gun that's functional. I don't want to be paying for a whole bunch of crazy electronics. That said, I do have the Lux Ice. It's a gun that I really enjoy. It talks to you. It's got a whole bunch of other crazy features. So again, there is a cool factor to having all of the electronic gadgets, but I think on the M2 it was just kind of an overglorified DM14 and not really worth the money. With the M2, I played it once and immediately did not like the ergonomics. Again, on my first time that I played it, my plastic ASA lever broke. Everyone was saying, oh, it's, a really strong composite, don't worry about it. Why couldn't they have just made it out of aluminum, Mine broke. I'm not sure when or at what point it broke, but it broke. On top of that, the eye pipe. I cannot get over the fact that they have not come up with a better idea than their stupid effing eye pipe. Again, the first time I played with the M2, I broke the eye pipe. I was out for the entire day. That was it. I understand with the M2, they made the eye pipe stronger. I'm a clumsy person. I break shit. I'm really rough on guns. And the M2 was no exception. I don't care how much I pay for something. If I buy something to use, I'm going to use it how it's intended. So I'm rough with guns. I may have over-tightened my barrel. The eye pipe might have spun a little bit. But regardless, it's something that breaks. And it's something that die needs to get the F rid of. That was kind of it for me. I was just like, okay, I'm done with this. On top of that, air efficiency wasn't as great as it should have been, in my opinion. It was on par with the DM14. I feel like they should have done something a little bit better. I think they were operating right around 130 psi. I wasn't too impressed. So air efficiency was kind of meh, but on top of that, with it operating at 130 psi, being colder in Washington State than most places, when you're working with brittle paint here, like tournament grade, like 5-star, GI Sports 5-star, it's really hard to not get breaks. Paintball season here is, 45, 50 degrees, sometimes even colder. So running tournament grade paint is damn near impossible. Another thing that kind of bugged me was their whole integrated wireless charging thing. You still have to plug something in to be able to charge your gun. It was cool that they added it, but at the same time, for whatever it was worth, to me it wasn't worth much. And on top of that, if your battery died and you were in the middle of like a 24-hour game, which I'm getting ready for soon, you had to bring a charger. You had to worry about this stuff. I miss the days of batteries, keep it simple. I miss the simplicity of just having to worry about carrying batteries. Worst case scenario, if you didn't have a battery, every single paintball field in the entire world is going to have batteries. That's a given. Another thing about the dies that I don't like is the whole die stigma. When you're the guy on the field with the brand new, going back in time here, the brand new DM3, everyone's like, oh shit, look at that guy. A lot of the other guys that had dies were people who just had money and assumed that because they had an expensive marker, they were going to be better. And more often than not, it was those guys getting their asses kicked by little kids with Titman 98s. And you had this stigma of like, oh, this guy has, the brand new die. So chances are he's either, a professional player or he's somebody who, is trying to make up for lack of skill with a better marker and money. I didn't want to fit that stigma. I didn't want to be that guy. So let's dive into this box and I'll show you my foray into a different company. New Benchmade Adamus, by the way. Or Adamus, or however you want to pronounce it, that's up to you. Proof of my impatience, overnight and Saturday delivery. Yep, not cheap. Let's put that aside for now. Alright, so this is me jumping into a new company. I have played with some Planet Eclipse guns in the past. My first Planet Eclipse gun was an E-Tech, and it got stolen, but it was a cheaper gun, and I actually really enjoyed playing with it. For what it was, at the same time that I had that E-Tech, it was the backup to my Lux, my original Lux when they first came out, because my Lux was breaking all the time, and I needed something reliable, and the $500-600 E-Tech totally fit that bill. When the CS1 came out, it was something that I was looking at and something I was considering, and I was kind of on the fence between die and Planet Eclipse at that point. As things work with Planet Eclipse, 2 months after the CS1 came out, the CS 1.5 came out, and that was kind of like a proven workhorse. The CS 1.5 kind of fixed everything that was wrong with the CS1. Not that there was too many things that really stood out to me that was wrong with the CS1, but the CS 1.5 kind of had a lot of really cool revisions. And then came out the CS2. The CS2 was kind of the tipping point for me in the fact that I was looking at the M2 and I was looking at the 1.5. And the M2 managed to figure out how to get gas through grip, while the 1.5 was still running gas through frame. So the trigger guard was, a gas port. Gas tube? Gas, whatever. So the CS2 mitigated that. The CS 1.5 also had a lot of problems with people bending the frame. I've never personally seen it. I'd never seen it, but I heard about it a lot, and it was something that kind of made me wary because, I do like playing Snake. I do like being really aggressive. I'm definitely a, balls out, just go kill everyone kind of player. So being a more aggressive player and being a bigger guy, standing 6'7", 200 pounds, when I dive, I hit the ground pretty hard. I didn't want a gun that was going to pretzel under me if I landed on it. So that was kind of a concern of mine, but not really too much of a concern. It was just, the M2 kind of had that advantage of just going direct gas through grip over the 1.5. That was the one thing for me that kind of, made me go with the M2. Another thing with the 1.5 was I was hearing that people were slamming their guns on the ground and they were turning off because there was a problem with the battery in the foregrip, and the batteries would jar themselves loose and they would lose contact in the middle of the game. If you dove too hard, your gun would turn itself off, which obviously is going to be a really bad thing. Enough talking, let's get into the box. This is obviously going to be the first time I'm seeing it as well. Alright. So right from the get-go, this kind of already wins in comparison to the Dies box. The Dies box wasn't bad, but just Planet Eclipse and the presentation is always just so much more classy. So even with the Planet Eclipse's middle of the road guns, the $600, $700, $800 guns, they still give you a really cool case. I actually see myself using this case again as opposed to some of the die cases, which are like, I'm just going to chuck my gun in my bag and be done with it. how this opens. User manual. Full color. I would expect nothing less. Awesome, awesome, awesome. As pretty much everyone said, most people are going online for manuals nowadays anyways. And the gun. This color is the Viper 3. I don't know if that's supposed to be a fancy E or whatever. So this is my first time ever even playing with a Pops ASA, and I can tell you right now that I like it a lot. Let's take a look at the bolt. I don't want to get my fingers greasy, but awesome bolt design. So the GP Core drivetrain is one of those bolts that just kind of runs, just works by itself. You don't really need to adjust too much as far as settings go, as far as regulator pressures go. It just works. So not too much tuning you have to worry about from the factory. Everything is just kind of there. And it is the GP Core. So something about the GP Core is it runs at 109 psi, so it's insanely low, which translates to a really soft shot, really awesome efficiency, and on top of that, it works really well in brittle paint. So here in Washington, I will be able to shoot more brittle paint and not have to worry about as many, if any, breaks in cold weather due to a heavier hit of a bolt, which will be really, really nice. So the new trigger design, you can adjust everything as you would before, your over travel, your pre-travel, everything else like that. However, on this trigger, you can actually adjust the rake of the trigger so it can be further forward, further back without changing your activation point. So if you have bigger hands like I do, and you want that trigger further forward, or you want more rake to it, just because you do, you can do that. And that's something that's pretty cool. So on the 1.5, you had Allen keys. On the 2, you have a toolless design. See if I can get this apart without breaking anything. I've seen other reviewers break them. Trying to be gentle here. Alright, so grips come off really easily. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure that I care too much about the toolless grip design. It's cool that they have it. Realistically, I won't be taking the grips off. I don't know, ever. Unless, you know, I get a really bad break inside of my grip. But honestly, my guns are always dirty anyways. Alright, so getting the grips back on. And again, truth be told, I don't think I'll be taking these off too often, but it's cool that it is toolless and easier to do. Alright, so pulling this grip off, without punching my camera. This is their new design that mitigated the whole, you know, if you took a dive, your batteries would jar themselves loose. Basically what they did, ouch, is they put the batteries under a lot of pressure. This is omnidirectional, doesn't matter which way it goes in. There's tabs on both sides, and it's under a lot of spring tension. It actually takes quite a bit of force to hold it in place, so there's no way those batteries are going to jostle themselves loose. So huge advantage over die is the way that they did the eyes. So when you get a break in your barrel, die's solution to that, or problem, I should say, was you would take your eye pipe out and clean it, and your eyes wouldn't ever actually be exposed to broken paint. With this, you have a quick release tab, Your eye cover comes off, and your eye is actually down here in the grip frame, and the laser that's transmitted from your eyes is actually going through a fiber optic and into the breech. So if you break paint, all you need to do is take this off and clean this. Very, very, very smart. Ingenious design, one that's very welcomed. A lot of people are really excited about that. I'm definitely one of them. Just makes so much more sense. So when you do have a break, you can literally just take these off, and even if you're on the field, honestly, you could just wipe them on your shirt and they'd be clean enough to be able to get that view back. So yeah. So in the box, they also give you a tube of the Eclipse grease. I actually really like this stuff. They also give you a second bolt face. This is the hard face, and it comes with a soft face bolt already in the gun, which is going to be the one that I'm going to use primarily anyways. So that's cool. So I'm seeing detent, springs, a lot of extra parts that are going to be actual usable parts. The one thing I will miss from the die is the color coding system, but the shaft FL barrel, this is all carbon fiber. They give you a 681 and a 689 back. The 689 is the black, and the 681, which is probably going to be the one that I'm going to be using the most, is the green. So the way they did this is your back actually goes into your front. It's going to be a reverse thread. And it is amazing how incredibly light these barrels are. Very, very, very well done. I will be the first to admit I'm nervous about using a carbon fiber barrel, but we'll see. So piecing everything together. So there is the entire gun together. I'm really, really, really liking it. Like I was saying, the bolt is an incredible design. There's a lot more detailed video on the bolt itself out there. I'm not going to get into it, and honestly I don't know too much about it in the first place. I mean, I do to a certain degree, but not in any form of official capacity where I could actually say too much about it. One problem that I had with the M2's ASA that this one doesn't have is when you would degas your gun, you would still have a couple of shots inside of your gun. The first time that I degassed my M2, I set it in my bag, and we were driving home, and all of a sudden, what the fuck was that? You know, both my wife and myself jumped, and it was the gun degassing itself the rest of the way. It took maybe 30 minutes, an hour for it to happen. So, you know, it's a small gripe, but the fact that, you know, why don't you just degas yourself the whole way? This one does. So, you know, once your pops is forward, your gun degasses. There's nothing left in the rig. It's empty. So that is the new Planet Eclipse CS2. I cannot wait to get out and play with this. Again, I will be recording all of my 24-hour game. My wife and myself will both have GoPros on our guns, and probably head mount and chest mount as well. So CS2 overall thoughts, it's awesome. You know, spending $1,600 on this gun versus, I think I paid $1,695 originally on the M2. Without having even shot this yet, I can already tell you that $1,600 on the CS2 versus the M2 or even the M3 is going to be money much better spent. Again, that's my opinion. That's how I feel, but I feel like I kind of have a little bit to say in regards to it, as I've been running dies since the DM3. That's quite a long time. I'm happy to make the switch. So CS2. So that's gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna go put some paint through this gun. I don't know if I'll get it on video or not. Chances are I probably won't, but you guys will be seeing this gun in competition in the next couple weeks or so. Be safe.